Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the EV Geek podcast, where we dive deep into the world of electric vehicles and driving culture. I'm your host, Joel, and today we have an exciting showdown lined up for you. In one corner, we have the sleek and futuristic Tesla Model 3, an electric vehicle that's been making waves with cutting-edge technology and impressive range. And in the other corner, we have the tried and true Toyota Camry, an iconic name in the world of reliable sedans, known for its practicality and long-standing reputation. In this episode, we'll break down the strengths and weaknesses of each vehicle, comparing everything from performance and efficiency to features and overall value. Sebastian from the Kilowatt Station will be discussing the Toyota Camry, and I will be discussing the Model 3. Sebastian, are you ready to get this 7-round heavyweight bout underway?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, round one. We're each going to give you an overview of each car. So the Tesla Model 3, a little background and history on it. It's a battery electric mid-size sedan that has sort of a fastback body style, built by Tesla, in case you have lived under a rock for the last couple of years. It was introduced in 2017, so it makes it a fairly new automobile. This vehicle is marked as being more affordable to more people than previous Tesla versions were. So Tesla originally came out with the Model S, and that was a very expensive car. We're talking, at that time, probably high six figures, low, low, I don't know, $80,000, $90,000 probably. So the Model 3 was the world's top selling plug-in electric vehicle for 3 years, from 2018 to 2020, before its sister came along, the Tesla Model Y, a crossover SUV based on the Model 3 chassis, and took the top spot. In June 2021, the Model 3 became the first electric car to pass global sales of 1 million vehicles. It does come in 4 different variants: rear-wheel drive, long range, 2 models, and a performance. So the rear-wheel drive is going to cost you around $38,900. The long range rear-wheel drive will be $42,490. Long range all-wheel drive, $47,490. And the Beast, the performance, $54,900. These models do qualify for the $7,500 federal tax rebate. So take all those prices if you qualify, and minus $7,500 off the sticker, and that's what you would pay. All right, Toyota Camry. Tell us a little bit about it, Sebastian.
I just want to add real quick. I believe the plain rear-wheel drive Model 3 does not qualify for the tax credit.
You're right. I looked over that. You're correct. It does not.
But still, that puts the long-range rear-wheel drive after tax credit right at $35,000. So still pretty good. Anyway,
yes.
Okay.
It's the I believe it's the LFP battery in it. Correct?
Yes, I believe that's right.
Yep.
So Toyota Camry, everyone knows it. It's been around forever. It's kind of the gold standard of mid-size sedans. It's got a reputation that, it's earned pretty well. It was the #1 selling vehicle in the United States for multiple years in a row. I think it's very recently been overtaken by a crossover, but still, it's still in that top 10. The 2025 Camry is all new, kind of, and it comes in 4 trim levels. You get LE for your base model, then an SE, XLE, and XSE. Your base model starts at $28,400, and then all the way up to the top trim, starting at around $35,000.
All right, so round 2, we're going to talk about performance and kind of a driving experience. So with the Model 3, looking at acceleration and speed. So the rear-wheel drive, 125-mile top speed, 0 to 60 in 5.8 seconds. And it's going to get you a range of up to 272 miles. Next, you have, again, the long-range rear-wheel drive, 125-mile-per-hour top speed, 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds, and you'll get a range of up to 363 miles. The long-range all-wheel drive, once again, 125-mile-per-hour top speed, 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, up to 341 miles, and the Beast, the performance, goes up to 163 miles per hour, a 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, which is a beast in that car, and has a range up to 303 miles. As you all know, it charges on the Tesla Supercharger network, which is the largest in the U.S. And if you buy a separate CCS adapter, you can fast charge on the other CCS networks as well, such as Electrify America, EV Go, ChargePoint, etc. Toyota Camry.
So for 2025, the new Camry, it is only available with their hybrid powertrain, which is a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder. And then you have the option to, it's by default front wheel drive, but on the higher trim levels, you can add in an option for all wheel drive, which is pretty neat. You can charge it at any gas station that you might find along the road or in the middle of your neighborhood, wherever, pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
And Toyota rates the base model LE at 53 miles to a gallon in the city and 50 highway, with other trims being rated around 48 to 47. Driving dynamics is not near as quick as the Model 3. Your 0 to 60 is around 7 to 8 seconds in the front wheel drive car. I couldn't find any numbers for the all wheel drive car, so who knows? And the SE and XSE trims have a more sporty suspension compared to the XLE and LE.
I wonder what exactly sporty means. A little more
Who
bouncy,
knows?
I guess. I don't know. All right, round 3, technology and features. So the Model 3, if you're familiar, has an infotainment system as its user interface. So it's an all-in-one central display, which is 15.4-inch screen. Think of it as having a large iPad in the middle of your center console, and that is what you use to control everything. There are no buttons. It's all in the screen. So some people like that. Some people don't. It does come with autopilot and advanced driver assistance, the ADAS systems. Comes standard with like a standard autopilot. I guess we'd call it like cruise control on other cars. You can purchase full self-driving. Supervised is what it's called now, not beta. Supervised. If you have just an extra, like, $8,000 laying around, or $99 a month to get a supervised version of full self-driving. The nice thing about the car, it does come with over-the update. So it's very similar to like an iPhone. When you get an update in your iPhone, it says you have an update and you hit download. Same thing with a Tesla. You get a notification on your screen in your car, or you get a notification through the app saying you have an update, download. So that pretty much handles, 99% of the recalls that you see out there for Teslas. It's basically just a software update. Tesla sends out the update, you download it, you're good to go. Like I said, you can start the update either through the app or you can do it in your car whenever you get out.
Yeah. So Camry, just starting with infotainment system. First 2 trim levels, so LE and SE, kind of your more entry-level trim levels, have an 8-inch touchscreen, but a fully digital gauge cluster. Tesla doesn't have a gauge cluster.
No, it doesn't.
But when you bump up to the XLE and XSE cars, you get a 12.3-inch widescreen display on the dash, and then your same, gauge cluster. They do come standard with what Toyota calls Toyota Safety Sense. I believe it's Toyota Safety Sense 3.0 now. Anyway, that includes adaptive cruise control, lane following, blind spot monitoring, and it even has it can detect where if stuff is coming in and out of your lane and then adjust accordingly. So maybe a pedestrian walking down the road, it'll scooch over to give them more room, or a car kind of swerving into your lane, it'll scooch over in the other direction. So it does stuff like that. And I saw where they were talking about, they call it traffic jam assist, to where under, I think, 25 miles an hour, it will allow you to drive and you don't actually have to have your hands on the wheel, which is neat.
Cool.
25 miles an hour, so you're not really using that outside of a traffic jam situation. So not like, full self-driving, where in theory you don't have to have your hands on because it's using the camera in the car to watch you, although I don't know that actually happens in practice.
Yeah.
It still seems to, or at least when I've messed with it in your car, it seems to nag pretty frequently about having your hand on the wheel, which is fine. Keep your hands on the wheel.
It does, but I will say, since the latest update, I have driven, about 3 or 4 mile stretch, and that's the most I've used it since coming down a highway, about 3 or 4 miles, and it didn't nag me. It didn't. So maybe they figured it out. Maybe they got rid of that. Curious about the Camry, and I'm sure these are very similar to other ICE vehicles. Do you still kind of have to take it in for an update? Do you have to download? I know with my wife's old Kia, we had to put a USB stick in the computer, then take it, put the USB stick in, and kind of update it like that.
Yeah. So as far as I know, it's still a dealer service model as far as updates go.
Gotcha. All right, round 4, which probably the Camry would probably beat the Tesla Model 3, is interior and comforts. The Model 3 has a very stark and very sleek design. Basically, you have a screen, armrest with storage, cup holders, and a charging pad, and that's basically all you got in the car. The 2024 models the newer models come with the steering wheel. The stocks are gone in those, so you have these little haptic buttons on the steering wheel, so you don't, press the wipers down with the stock or press the turn signals down with the stock. You actually have these buttons that you can use on your, kind of like a volume button or a cruise control button on your steering wheel to turn on your wipers and to turn on your turn signals. I personally don't like it. I'm sure it's something you have to get used to, but to change the gear now in the newer Model 3s, you have to kind of swipe up and down on the screen, which for me, being OCD, makes the screen dirty and it drives me nuts. But yeah, so yeah, taking those steering wheel stocks out is good. It's kind of something, people have to get used to, because that's some people have been driving with, for hundreds of years. Space and seating comfort. So it's about, 15 and a half feet long, about 7 feet wide, a little bit less than that, has a height of about 5 feet, a little shorter than that. I would say the seats are somewhat comfortable. On the newer models, they're heated and cold. Front and back seats. Your choices of interior are white and black, and that's it. If you don't like those, then I'm sorry. The one thing I do notice about this car with design, it does get hot in the summertime. This car is surrounded by glass. It has a huge glass roof. It has a huge, front window, back window, side windows. It's all glass basically. So if you don't have shades in there, it does get hot. And some of the unique features, it does have that minimalist design, a large touchscreen. Like you mentioned, there is no heads-up display. So not only do you not have that gauge cluster in the front, right there in front of your steering wheel, you have to kind of look to the right, but you have no heads-up display as well, which kind of, kind of have to keep looking to the right and things like that. No spare tire, which a lot of cars, I believe, are going to now. There is since there is no engine, you have a large storage area in the front, which is called the frunk, and you have a lot of rear storage in the back. The Camry.
Yeah, so as far as cabin design goes, it is still very much, it matches basically a lot of the other traditional automakers, where you kind of have the steering wheel, gauge cluster, shift over, big iPad kind of screen mounted high up on the dash, row of buttons for your, climate controls or whatever, and then cubby, cup holders, armrest, standard issue stuff. In typical Toyota fashion, it looks like it's made of a lot of very durable materials that will probably outlive the rest of the car in typical, typical Toyota.
That's typical Toyota, yep.
So and that kind of goes into the having hard switches for your climate control and everything. It's the base model, and this is kind of a kind of important distinction, on paper, it looks like the Model 3 is pretty expensive, but you have to remember that the base Model 3 is still a nice car. You're still getting leather seats and all this. Your base Camry is cloth seats, no heated seats. It doesn't even have the base Camry. You don't even get the whole where you walk up to the door and you just push a button on the handle to unlock it. You actually have to get your key out, hit the unlock button, and then get in. It does have push to start, though.
Oh, cool.
But once you start stepping up in trim levels on the top two trims, it adds in leather heated seats. And then you have the option to add ventilated seats. I don't believe there's an option for a heated steering wheel on the Camry, though. Space is good, kind of comparable to all the other mid-size sedans. You don't get a front because there's an engine up there, but you get a good-sized trunk, good-sized back seat, good-sized front seat. I did see, however, a couple reviews when I was kind of looking into it mentioned that the front seats were not as comfortable as they thought they should be. I haven't sat in one. I don't know. It might be one of those things. It just depends on how big you are, how tall you are, whatever. Your mileage may vary. People tell me that the seats of a Chevy Bolt are uncomfortable all the time, but they don't bother me. Anyway, but I did, I noticed it in a couple different times. Ultimately, though, it's very much just a car. That's kind of what the Camry always has been. It's never been anything super exceptional on the inside. It has been an appliance. It will be good at road tripping. It'll be good at commuting, whatever you need. You're not getting anything super high class luxurious out of it, but you're also not getting anything crappy.
Yeah, and that's kind of different with the Model 3, because no matter what version you get out of the 4, the interior is going to be the same. Right. The only difference is, whether it's a single motor, dual motor, and range. I mean, everything else is the same. It's not like, you drop down in models, you get less. You go up in models, you get more. You're getting everything with the same with the Model 3.
Yeah, the only thing with Teslas is they do sometimes do stuff like, adding extra speakers to the sound system or whatever as you go up. But that's really it.
Yep. But just getting into it, noticing it, you're not going to notice until you drive for a while and think, oh, that may have a subwoofer, it may not,
Right.
But interior wise and aesthetic wise, it does look the same. All right. So next round is round 6, I believe it is.
5.
No, round 5. Sorry. Round. Oh, then we're only going to do 7 rounds. I missed my numbers here. So next up is round 5, which is kind of the cost of ownership, and this is kind of hard to figure out because cost of ownership is going to vary for everyone. Cost of ownership is different for someone who drives 10,000 miles a year, or someone who drives just 20 or 25,000 miles a year. So long-term cost, depending on how you drive, I have noticed with me and other people, your insurance rates will be higher. So when we switched from a gas power car to a EV, the insurance rates did go up depending on how you drive, and your driving record depends on how much it goes up. You have to charge at home. If I wouldn't suggest getting an EV unless you can charge at home. For me, home charging averages for my one car about $75 to $90 a month, which it sounds kind of high, but if you think about how much you're spending in gas per month, it's not. And I actually do a lot of driving, so I'd probably drive 100, 150 miles a day. Basic maintenance: tires, rotation, wipers, and washer fluid. That's it. Those are the 4 basic things you're going to have to do in that car. Replace the tires, rotate them, change your wipers, and put washer fluid in it. The issue is when you have to have maintenance done, especially in states like where we live, you have to take it to a Tesla service center. You can't take it, to Joe's garage and have them work on it. And if you don't have one in your state, that may be a 2-3 hour drive or a 2 or 3 hour tow. Tesla does have mobile rangers that can handle some minor issues. But if it's a major issue, you're going to have to take it to one of those service centers. A resale value is just like kind of all other cars have decreased significantly. Most used Model 3s now that we're seeing mid to high 30s, low 20s. You could probably get a 2017, 2018 out there in the teens now. My brother-in-law just bought a 2018 Model 3 and with the rebate only spent $16,000 on it. So we're starting to see those prices come down in the used market as well as the new market as well.
Yeah. So when you start looking at the Camry, it comes with all of the kind of typical ICE vehicle maintenance. So in addition to your tires and tire rotations and wipers and wiper fluid, you add in oil changes and coolant flushes and brakes and air filters and just various things. And that kind of just depends, a lot of cars now, they say, oh, you only need to change the oil every 7,500 miles. Or I think even some are now saying 10,000 miles, which is still crazy to me to think about. But, typically the rule of thumb I've always done is 5,000 miles for your oil changes. That's every 5,000 miles you're spending 75 to 100 bucks at a dealership to have them change your oil. That said, the Camrys typically, from what I remember and what I know, they typically hold their value pretty well. They don't depreciate as fast as others because they're known for being a good, reliable vehicle. But, long-term costs, it gets super dependent on just how much you are driving. Because once you start getting above, 60, 70,000 miles, you start having to look at stuff like spark plugs, and over 100,000 miles, timing chains and transmission flushes. There's just a lot more components that, need some love in order to keep them from, catastrophically failing.
Yeah, so kind of looking at both comparisons, with my own Model 4, I would say my Model 3. So my Model 3 for 4 years. It's late when we record these, y'all. It's late. We both have full-time jobs. It gets a little late when we record these. So yeah, so my Model 3 over a 4-year period, I would say $2,500 to $3,000. Most of that's tires because tires are expensive on this car. Energy, because we don't have gas, and I base that off about 13 cents a kilowatt because that's what I pay for electricity at my house, no matter if I'm charging my car or if I'm running my microwave. 13 cents a kilowatt is what I pay. Kind of the same thing. What about the Camry? Kind of the same thing over that, the same thing?
Yeah, so Camry I chose since you did 4 years. That's kind of the numbers I used for my math. And so the national average is right around 15,000 miles a year is what someone will drive. So after 4 years, you'd be at around 60,000 miles. So if you're doing oil changes at every 5,000 miles, that's 12 oil changes. And this was a while ago, so the numbers might be off. It's probably worse now. But the last time I paid for an oil change, an oil change at a dealership, it was 75 bucks. So that's $900 in oil changes over the course of 4 years. And then you have to add in, gas costs, which the current national average when I looked it up earlier today was $3.44 a gallon. And so if we say you're getting 50 miles to the gallon average for the entirety of your 60,000 miles, you're looking at 1,200 gallons of gas or just over $4,000.
So $4,000 alone just in gas for 4 years.
Yep. And then you add in your $900 in oil changes, and so you're now almost $5,000, and that's not factoring in, in that 60,000 miles, you probably put tires on it. You probably had
to do once or twice, maybe how you drive. So
right, you might have had to do some love on the brakes, stuff like that. Just stuff that's kind of hard to put a number to, but it adds up quickly.
Yeah, And with with EVs and regen braking, it has you don't need brakes. I've had people look at my brakes. My car has almost 80,000 miles on. The city brakes looks good as new. And you kind of have the same thing with your Bolt when they looked at yours.
Mhm.
There's no wear in the brakes. I don't think I've ever heard a lot of people saying I had to get my brakes replaced on my Tesla. I mean, I'm sure it
Right.
happens, but you just don't hear it a lot.
Right.
All right, next round is environmental impact and efficiency. So I kind of looked at this as a broad model for electric vehicles. And then I got a lot of this from the EPA website, and I'll put a link in the show notes for that. So if you're interested, you can kind of see what environmental impact and efficiency has for all electric vehicles, so you can kind of dispel some of the rumors out there. So the greenhouse gases associated with electric vehicle over its lifetime are typically lower than those from an average gasoline powered vehicle, even when accounting for manufacturing. So yes, manufacturing EVs can leave a little bit more carbon footprint than other standard vehicles, but that kind of decreases over time because you're not putting gas and polluting the air. So electric vehicles do typically have a smaller carbon footprint than gasoline vehicles, even when accounting for the electricity used by charging, especially in a lot of these newer homes now where you can charge off the grid using solar and things like that with power walls and things like that. Plug-in electric vehicle battery replacement due to failures. We talked about this on a couple episodes ago. Very uncommon. We hear a lot about it. So less than 0.5% of the cars last year, excluding recalls, needed their battery replaced. So I'm kind of looking at energy efficiency and emissions. So let's just use the state of West Virginia because West Virginia gets over 90% of the electricity from coal, which is dirty and inefficient. So even in the worst case scenario, an EV still uses around 1/3 less energy than a gasoline vehicle in that state. An EV charged in West Virginia also reduces the carbon pollution by 30%. So even in a state like West Virginia, just charging your electric vehicle can reduce the carbon pollution by 30%. On average, across the U.S., swapping a gasoline-powered vehicle for an EV will lower energy needed for driving by about 47%, which is just a bit less than half. So.
Yeah, so on the Camry side of it, we all know the environmental impact of a gasoline engine. You're burning dead dinosaurs, you're making pollution in the process. It's just part of it. That said, the Camry is now only available the hybrid, which helps. You're burning less dead dinosaur to go the same distance. But at the same time, it means it's a hybrid, which it also means it has a small electric motor and a small electric battery pack. So you still get some of that the manufacturing pollution for making that battery pack or whatever. So you're kind of double dipping a little bit there, because it does take considerable resources to build the battery pack, but you end up using less, you end up polluting less, you end up, you hurting the environment less the longer you drive that EV. But then with the Camry, on the hybrid battery pack, you are, using less gas, so you're making less pollution over the life of a vehicle, which is a good thing. But you're also then making more pollution for the actual manufacture of the vehicle. So you're a little double dipping there. It's a little shaky there. But it is good that it is now only a hybrid vehicle. That's good for the consumer because, you get awesome gas mileage, and that's ultimately still good for the environment.
And can you know a lot about this? Can you explain the difference? Because some people see hybrid and some people see plug-in hybrid. So what is kind of the difference between the two?
Yeah, so typically speaking, your hybrid, there's no charge port on it. The hybrid, it will drive on the battery power for a little while, kick the gas engine in, use the gas engine to alternator on it basically to charge the hybrid battery pack, switch it, back. It's usually a very small battery. We're talking maybe 1 to 2 kilowatt hours, just enough to kind of get you maybe 2 or 3 miles on electric power, and then switch back and then kind of run as a generator while also turning the wheels. Plug-in hybrids typically have a much larger battery pack. We're talking, I used to have a Chevy Volt. It had, I think, a 16 kilowatt hour pack. And so that was good for 30 to 40 miles, 50 miles if I was driving really, really good of charge, And then because it's a plug-in, you actually had to plug it in. It had a J1772 port like a normal EV would. And so that one, it would operate, electric only. And then when it ran out of the juice, it would kick the motor on the gas engine. But in my Volt, the gas engine was not connected to the drive wheels at all. So the gas engine only operated as a generator for the battery pack.
Okay.
So it's a little kind of neat thing. Now, not all the plug-in hybrids
Yep.
are like that. There are some plug-in hybrids on the market that will run electric only up until 70 miles an hour. And then they'll kick on the gas engine, and then there does some weird power split in the transmission. But my Volt wasn't like that. My Volt was kind of, in my mind, the best of both worlds, because what ends up happening is it is still more efficient to use a gas engine as just a generator than it is to use a gas engine to drive a car. Because
Gotcha.
when you're using it as a generator, it's just running at a constant RPM. It's sitting there maybe constantly at 2,000 RPM. There's no fluctuation. You're not having to gas it and rev it up to get up to speed, and none of that. And so it ends up being ultimately more efficient that way.
All right, thank you for that. And finally, it's the final round, which means our kind of final verdict. So who should consider, or why should you consider a Tesla Model 3? So if you are a tech enthusiast, if you're someone who's environmentally conscious, if you want a car that has high performance, you like to go fast, and lots of innovation, it's constantly updating. The car never gets old because you have those over-the-year updates. And if you're doing a lot of local and city driving, yes, these cars have impressive range. You can drive long distances in them. It will take longer because of the supercharging network and how long it takes to charge. And if you also have the option of at-home charging, then you should probably consider buying a Tesla Model 3. So why should you consider buying a Toyota Camry?
So really, the Camry kind of boils down to kind of what the theme of the car has been the whole time. It's a reliable, simple vehicle. You just get in it, you just drive it, you don't have to think about it. You go get gas, whatever. You kind of have that, it's cheaper up front, too, so it helps, kind of on front end there, or it should be cheaper up front. You get into the whole dealership game of markups and everything, and who knows if it'll actually end up being cheaper up front, but that's a different topic for a different day.
Dealer fees, floor mats, nitrogen, they put all that in there
Market
for you and charge you
adjustments,
for it,
yeah.
market adjustments.
But anyway, ultimately, it's a very well-rounded vehicle. It's a safe choice. It's a choice that's familiar for most people, and it will get them from point A to B, and hopefully also point C. And I just wanted to add on your Model 3 comment, the Model 3 is an excellent introduction for people who just want an EV, right? Maybe they want to try an EV. It's dead simple.
Their second car, possibly, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a dead simple EV to own. You have Tesla Supercharger. You just drive up, back into the spot, plug in. It just works, 99% of the time. There's no struggle with it. You've got the good range, so you can still, if you want to take it on a trip, take it on a trip. But if all you want to do is drive around at town, plug it in at home, that's perfectly fine too. It's an excellent introduction to that, especially with the used market now. Like you said, you're, I don't remember which family member it was. I'm sorry, but 16 grand after brother-in-law. There we go. 16 grand after a tax credit. It's at that price. It's really is kind of, if you want an EV, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yep. And we're starting to see a lot of people get into EVs now as kind of like I said, like their second car. So their wife has a minivan or a large SUV. This is something that's going to be our second car. We're going to take the kids to school. We're going to drive around town. We're going to do short distance trips. More people are comfortable doing that now because they can get a car for $20,000, $25,000, a reliable car for $20,000, $25,000. So it's a good point there, Sebastian. Okay, so now that the match is over, we're going to send it to the judges, which is you, the viewers. Both of these are fantastic vehicles that can fit into multiple driving circumstances. Now that you have the facts, you can make the best choice for you and your driving needs. I want to thank Sebastian for joining us today. Head on over to X and give him a follow at Kilowatt Station. You can also follow the podcast on X by searching the EV Geek. Thank you all for tuning in for this heavyweight boxing match between the Tesla Model 3 and Toyota Camry. Feel free to leave your comments below. We always love reading them, and we hope to see you again on our next episode. So long, everyone.
See y'all.